Early explorations before 1300 AD. Introduction. Any attempt to identify the first lesbian or gay man or transgender person to ever live would be both unsuccessful and unenlightening. If we assume that sexuality and gender are, at least in some way, innate, it stands to reason that humans have always had the potential for same-sex desires and have wanted to express their gender in ways that did not match their presumed sex. The understandings the first humans had about their gender and sexuality are completely out of our reach. Even archaeological discoveries of seemingly same-sex lovers buried together or female bodies buried in male poses can only tell us so much. Our modern interest in discovering traces of LGBTQ+ existence can lead us down a historical path. In 2021, for example, news reports described the finding of 1,000-year-old remains in Finland as proof of non-binary ancestors, when researchers had actually found a body with intersex characteristics. Types of evidence. Some archaeological finds from the ancient world would have suggested that same-sex partnerships existed and that society might have accepted these partnerships. One of the earliest examples is ancient Egyptian manicurist Khnum and Khnumhotep, buried together in around 2400 BC and depicted like a married couple in their tomb painting. We also have examples of legendary pairs from mythology who are depicted as homoerotic partners or even unequivocally as lovers, such as Enkidu and Gilgamesh from the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh and the ancient heroes from the Iliad, Achilles and Patroclus. Some of the most famous examples of homoeroticism in the ancient world come from court records of male rulers for whom it seems to have been acceptable to have relationships with male favorites. This is particularly true for the Han emperors of China, 206 to 220. But court records also name Abbas Caliph Al-Amin, R. 809 to 813, who preferred the company of enslaved men to women. Ancient poetry and treatises are another key source of evidence, from the poems of the Greek poet Sappho to the Indian sex manual, the Kama Sutra, which describes sexual acts between male and female same-sex couples, as well as marriage-like bonds between male partners called, hang on people, parigram. If I haven't pronounced it right, enunciated it right, I apologize. These ancient partnerships, despite appearing to be what we now class as homosexual, were viewed in different ways. In ancient Greece, the male partners were expected to be between an older and a younger man, with the younger taking a passive sexual role. Similarly, in ancient Rome, a distinction was made between the active penetrating partner and a man who was passive or receptive. The former was acceptable, the latter considered shameful. Understanding gender. Ancient societies explored gender in a variety of ways. Some of their own terminology seems to convey the idea of crossing gender lines or existing outside a binary gender system, as in the men-women temple workers of the Sumerian goddess Inanna, who could, according to hymns, change one gender to another, the woman-boy of ancient Egypt in the third nature in the Kama Sutra. These descriptions seem to focus on lived gender expression rather than a person's genitalia. Conversely, the ancients also had a lot to say about sex organs. Both ancient Greece and Rome built statues to the intersex goddess Hermaphroditos, and Rome in particular was familiar with ideas of changing sex. Roman physicians wrote about what we would now call intersex conditions. Priests called Galli underwent castration and lived as women, and the Emperor Nero supposedly hired a surgeon to operate on his new wife Sabina, who was assigned to male at birth, or AMAB for short. Religious persecution. The advent of Christianity had a far-reaching effect on attitudes toward what it considered sexual sin. In the 1st century AD, the Apostle Paul's letter to the Romans condemned homoerotic lust, and from about the 4th century, Christian thinkers began to characterize the biblical fall of Sodom and Gomorrah as the result of same-sex behavior. By the 5th century, the church had begun to condemn sex outside marriage, and by the 12th century, same-sex intercourse was being prosecuted in Christian kingdoms as a crime against nature. By the early 13th century, this crime was punishable by death.